What to do when you can't buy or sell. How to oppose digital slavery. Remember the lockdowns? Even when we were masked up, we were shut out of work, family milestones, social events, restaurants, sporting events. But what if you were digitally shut out of these things? The globalists are planning just that. They're planning to control your money so it can't be used for those things, that it can only be used in certain places and for certain times. The government is happy to establish a new holiday like Juneteenth to celebrate the end of slavery, but behind the scenes, they're working on a digital form of slavery. But there might be something we can do about it before it's too late. And that's what this video is all about. Let me tell you a story that kind of illustrates where we're going. This weekend, my daughter had a flat tire, and I took her car down to Walmart to get the tire patched. Ahead of me in line was this man, and he was planning to pay in cash. He handed the attendant 4 crisp 20s to pay his bill. The attendant opened the register, but there was no cash. Zero. "Hey man," he said to the person in line, "they're trying to discourage us from using cash. You got a credit card?" The man in line ahead of me stood his ground. "I'm not going to let the government tell me what to do. I'm paying in cash," he said. This is the first time I've ever seen anyone stand up to the no cash movement. The cashier, notice I used the word cashier, walked away, and 5 minutes later he returned with the man's change. They had cash. They just didn't want to use it. Now, what's the big deal about not using cash, you might ask? And after all, isn't cash dirty? Doesn't it transmit disease? Well, that was one of the COVID narratives that they ran early on, but surfaces they've proven didn't transmit COVID. Now, bills do carry bacteria, and if that concerns you, you can always use hand sanitizer. But in the history of paper money, that goes back hundreds of years, that's never really been a concern. The government went so far as to also claim there was a coin shortage during COVID. Now think about this. The Federal Reserve, who mints coins, and who also happen to be the characters who are wanting to go to digital currency, by the way, just to let you know they're the same group, claimed we had a shortage. They said there are 28 billion coins in circulation, and a third of that number are minted new each year. So when they couldn't run the mints because of lockdowns, we were in a shortage. That's what they said. But think about that statement. Coins can last decades. They don't wear out. The only way they go out of circulation is if the banks take them out of circulation to replace them with new ones. So any coin shortage was 100% created. You can just prove that to yourself thinking about it. We have plenty of coins. The banks made a coin shortage to discourage the use of cash. If you hear about a coin shortage in the future, you can remember this video and know that it is 100% contrived. There will never be a coin shortage unless the banks want one to happen. Hard physical money, however, provides us with 2 undeniable advantages. First, it isn't traceable, and second, it isn't controllable. It isn't traceable, meaning it isn't tied to your digital identity. No one knew who the man was in Walmart who paid in cash in line ahead of me. He didn't have to provide a driver's license to use his cash, and considering he was buying hunting supplies, that might just be the sort of thing the government might keep track of, before they confiscate guns. Physical money also isn't programmable. It isn't controllable in the way that digital money is. The day may come when all of Walmart is a place you can't use your money. If all currency was digital, all the Federal Reserve would have to do is program your money not to work at Walmart. They could do this for good reasons, or for no reason at all. Remember the lockdowns? Initially, people were asked to only go to the grocery or to the drugstore. If a similar lockdown were to occur when digital currency is in vogue, all the Federal Reserve has to do is make the digital currency not work anywhere but groceries and drugstores. They can even program it to only work at the closest grocery to your house. This gives them incredible power. Just think about it. Let's say they want everybody to get a certain drug or jab. They can shut off everything except groceries or drugstores until you have done what they are requiring you to do. Free choice, then, would be completely out the window. Let's say they want to keep you confined to the city limits of the town where they have assigned you. They can program your money to only work within that city. Let's say you live in Dallas and you want to go to Houston. They can prevent it by programming your money to only work in Dallas. If you leave the city limits, you wouldn't be able to buy fuel for your vehicle, food, lodging, nothing. You'd be trapped in Dallas by your money. Let's say they want to ration gasoline. They can program your money to only allow you to spend so much in a given month. They can do the same thing with anything. Beef, coffee, ammunition, anything they want to restrict can easily be restricted with the flip of a switch. And they'd be able to do this for you, and maybe not your neighbor. Maybe they'll let him buy beef, but not you. It could be completely at the political whim of those in charge on who would be restricted and who wouldn't. So COVID feels as though it might be mostly over to many folks. But it is a ruse to lull us into complacency. The globalists are in the process of enslaving us with digital chains. And there is something we can potentially do about it. By canceling cash, they take away our most personal freedoms to purchase goods and services that we want, to invest wherever we want, and to send money to whomever or wherever we want. By controlling how we spend our money, though, they would exert the ultimate personal dominion and domination over us. And by resisting these efforts to digitalize our money, we are taking a stand against the globalists and their world totalitarian plans. In this previous video, we discussed the 4 main pillars of their plan: digital ID, digital currency, loss of national sovereignty, and social credit scoring. If you haven't seen this video, I suggest you watch it when this one's done. There's a link down in the description. The Great Reset rests on these 4 pillars. If you want to resist the Great Reset, just resist any of these 4 pillars and you'll slow down the spread of global totalitarianism. Of course, though, we can't stop it forever. The Bible is very clear that exactly this sort of thing is going to happen when the beast takes over. Quote, "It also forced all people, great and small, rich and poor, free and slave, to receive a mark on their right hands and on their foreheads, so that they could not buy and sell unless they had the mark, which is the name of the beast or the number of its name." Revelation 13:16 through 17. How will the beast enforce this ban on buying and selling? Only if it has control over money. Otherwise, there would always be a black market for goods and services. You'd always be able to buy and sell on the black market. But digital currency is the key to the mark of the beast systems being able to restrict all buying and selling. More than an RFID chip, digital currency is the key to the mark of the beast being implemented. So we should resist this move toward the mark as long as we possibly can. It's God's will, it happens. We just don't know when it's going to happen, so we should resist. In terms of digital currency, when enough of us are using cash for most of our expenditures, we will have created a barrier to this most extreme takeover of our personal lives. Banks around the world are moving quickly toward digital cash. In fact, China has already implemented digital currency, and that's a grave warning for the future. China is the experimental test lab for all of the globalist plans in terms of all four pillars: digital ID, digital currency, and social credit scoring. You probably are aware they're trying all of these out already. The Federal Reserve, and we mentioned them before, are the central bank of the USA. And they're well on their way to developing digital currency right here in the USA. Their admission that they are, in fact, developing digital currency should place all of us on alert. It should increase our motivation to begin using cash anywhere we can and every time we can. Governments at all levels can turn totalitarian overnight, as we saw in the COVID crisis. So we must take the creation of digital currency as the most dangerous move toward totalitarianism that we have yet faced as a people. Digital currency is not only programmable, it's also traceable, as we said before. When we use digital currency, data is always collected. It tells them who we are, where we were, and what we purchased, and how much we spent. Gather enough data about an individual, and a digital fingerprint begins to form and can be sold and used. Habits are recorded. Purchases and preferences are noted. Everywhere we go is mapped for storage. All this data is gathered and combined with other technologies, such as our phone calls and our texts. Marketers were the first ones who used this collected data in order to personalize our ads. That's not really that dangerous. But think about this. Law enforcement and other government agencies also collect data to spy on the population. When the defund the police effort comes to its full completion, UN-affiliated brown shirts will replace them in our streets, and they will have access to all this data about you. Can you see how powerful that will be? The less information these brown shirts have on you personally, the better. If we protect paper and coin money, we humans have some control over our funds. We have an unprecedented moment in time right now to take decisive action that crosses across all party lines, cultures, beliefs. If only 10% of people were to switch to cash instead of using digital payment sources, we could win the cash revolution, at least for a while. Let's explain why. The big banks, not the Fed, but the big banks, are heavily leveraged. They have borrowed funds to increase their return on investment. So in other words, they're really in debt. But the money that the banks borrowed, they've already invested in other things. It means they have very little cash on hand, and this makes them vulnerable to cash withdrawals, and it makes them very dependent on their income, which comes from credit card fees charged to the vendors every time you use a credit card. I don't know if you knew that happens, but vendors are paying the credit cards every time you use them. It's a fee of 3-5%, something like that. It's a lot of money. And in terms of cash on hand, I was at my local bank about a week ago. And in front of me in line this time was a man trying to cash his paycheck, about $2,000. Guess what? The bank said they couldn't do it. They told the man he would have to deposit the check and make an appointment to come back for the cash because they don't carry that much anymore. I mean, this wasn't some huge amount of money, like $100,000. This was the guy's weekly check. I paid strict attention. What if we all started to ask for cash? About 1 million separate individuals listen to this channel every month. What if all of us made a major shift to using cash? That would place incredible pressure on our banks and stores like Walmart to carry more cash, and it would reduce the fees paid to banks for credit card use. By switching to cash and shopping locally, we give an extra boost to our own communities and our local merchants. We would probably spend less frivolously also because cash seems real. You can hold it and you can see the transaction as you pass the dollar from yourself to the cashier. That's opposed to an invisible transaction when you just give them a credit card. In these inflationary times, we may all need to begin to think about doing that. Here's what we need to do and what we can do. 1, start paying in cash. It may be inconvenient first, but think about how much. Klaus Schwab and Bill Gates don't want you using cash. It's worth the inconvenience, folks. Number 2, get out of big corporate banks. International banks are not our friends. They are a major villain in the international globalist takeover. We're going to have to leave them behind. Use small community banks and credit unions. Big banks actually suspend service to individuals and companies who they want to politically harm. We are much safer with a local community bank or credit union who won't do that to us as easily anyway. Number 3, if we can't pay in cash, pay using a check. Remember the 2 experiences I had with others in line in front of me and their use of cash. Handing cash to the cashier or receptionist is a teachable moment. Everyone standing behind us in the checkout line may learn from our actions. I was learning just watching these 2 individuals and what happened with their use of cash. And here's number 4, share this video right now. You don't know how many more people you may reach with this by taking that simple action. Share it on all your social media links while you still can. Now, a cash revolution is slightly inconvenient, but it gives each of us an opportunity to become involved on a daily basis in the fight against the global takeover of our governments, our lives, and against the eventual Antichrist and his mark of the beast. I mean, really makes me want to just go out and take my paycheck and make it entirely cash. I mean, those are the guys I want to struggle against. Now, speaking of globalists, what are your opinions of Elon Musk and Vlad Zelensky, president of Ukraine? You like them? They are media-created heroes. If you like them, the media is trying to get you to like them. And if the media is creating them, it's doing so for a purpose. To learn what that devious plan for these men might be, click right here to keep watching and learn what that purpose might be and why we shouldn't trust these 2 men. Till then, this is Nelson, and I'll see you there.